Imagine, if you dare, a presence so profoundly disturbing, so irrevocably malevolent, that merely gazing upon its visage seals your fate. A being of pure, unadulterated terror, whose very existence is a whisper of the apocalypse, waiting to unfold for anyone unfortunate enough to glimpse it. Today, we peel back the veil, not to understand its origins, nor to dissect its containment, but to confront a far more chilling prospect, what it's truly like to encounter SCP-096. This isn't a theoretical exercise, nor a dry academic dissection. We delve into the visceral, soul-shattering reality of coming face-to-face with the shy guy. Prepare yourself to journey through the escalating dread, the sickening certainty, and the inescapable horror that defines such an encounter. Our goal is to paint a vivid, disturbing picture, to immerse you in the chilling narrative of those who have, by pure misfortune or terrifying oversight, crossed paths with this entity. We will explore the initial, innocuous moment of observation, the horrifying shift in its demeanor, the relentless pursuit that follows, and the utterly inescapable conclusion that awaits. From the first, fleeting glance that ignites its fury, to the panicked, desperate flight that inevitably ends in its grasp, we will trace the trajectory of an encounter with SCP-096. You'll hear about the unearthly sounds that precede its arrival, the distorted, emaciated form that becomes a harbinger of doom, and the sheer, overwhelming terror that grips its victims. This is not for the faint of heart, for to truly grasp what it's like, one must confront the very abyss of fear. To truly comprehend what it's like to encounter SCP-0096, we must first dissect the fundamental, horrifying mechanics of such an event. It begins, innocuously enough, with a glimpse. Not a direct, sustained stare necessarily, but any visual perception of its face. This could be a photograph, a video feed, or even a fleeting reflection. The sheer horror lies in its indiscriminate nature. Intent is irrelevant. The moment your optic nerves register its form, the clock begins ticking. Initially, SCP-096 appears to react with profound distress. A low, mournful whimpering, almost childlike in its sorrow, emanates from its emaciated frame. It will often cover its face with its long, skeletal hands, trembling violently. This isn't a sign of shyness, however, but a precursor to something far more sinister. This initial phase, while unsettling, offers a false sense of security, a fleeting moment where one might mistakenly believe it to be a creature of sorrow rather than a harbinger of death. But then, the whimpering intensifies. It contorts into a guttural moan, a sound that vibrates with unimaginable anguish and rage. Its body begins to convulse, its spindly limbs twitching erratically. This is the pivotal moment, the turning point where the shy guy transforms into the pale man of rage. Its head snaps up, revealing its true, terrifying visage. A gaunt, pale face, devoid of eyes, mouth agape in a silent scream, or perhaps a scream that only its victim can truly hear in their soul. From this point, there is no escape. The creature enters an enraged state, its singular focus now fixed on the individual who saw its face. Distance is irrelevant. Obstacles are meaningless. SCP-096 will move with an unnatural, terrifying speed, tearing through any barrier, circumventing any obstacle, driven by an unstoppable primal urge to reach its target. Its path is one of destruction, leaving a trail of splintered metal, shattered concrete, and utter devastation in its wake. This is not merely a hunt. It is an inevitable, terrifying pilgrimage to the source of its perceived violation. The key aspect here is the absolute unyielding certainty of its pursuit. There is no negotiation, no hiding, no outrunning, only the horrifying knowledge that it is coming, and it will find you. Beyond the initial trigger and the horrifying transformation, another key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 lies in the sheer, unbridled terror of its pursuit. Imagine the chilling realization that an entity driven by an unknown, incomprehensible rage is now singularly focused on your destruction. This isn't a predator you can outsmart or a monster you can hide from. This is an inevitability. The sound of its approach is often the first, most visceral indication of its proximity. Witnesses describe a cacophony of unnatural noises: the tearing of metal, the splintering of wood, the crumbling of concrete, all punctuated by an increasingly frantic, guttural wailing. It's a sound designed to strip away any semblance of hope, to announce its unstoppable trajectory directly to your very soul. This isn't just a sound. It's a terrifying countdown to your demise, a symphony of destruction played just for you. The speed at which SCP-096 travels is another terrifying factor. It doesn't merely run, it moves with an impossible, almost ethereal velocity, covering vast distances in mere moments. Reports indicate speeds far exceeding anything a biological entity should be capable of, tearing across continents as if they were but a few paces. This relentless, impossible pace means that no matter where you flee, no matter how many miles you put between yourself and the initial sighting, it will always catch up. There is no safe haven, no remote corner of the earth untouched by its terrifying reach once it has locked onto its target. And then there's the psychological toll. The knowledge that you are being hunted by something utterly inhuman, something that cannot be reasoned with or appeased, is a torment far beyond physical pain. The paranoia, the gnawing dread, the desperate, futile attempts to escape, these are the true horrors experienced by those marked by SCP-096. Sleep becomes impossible, every shadow a potential harbinger, every distant sound a whisper of its approach. The mind, even before the body, begins to break under the weight of such absolute, inescapable doom. This isn't just about being killed, it's about being hunted relentlessly, hopelessly, until every fiber of your being is saturated with terror. The act of encountering SCP-096 is not just a physical threat, but a psychological crucible that shatters the very concept of safety and sanity. The final, most horrific aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the inevitable confrontation itself. Once it reaches its target, there is no struggle, no prolonged fight. The creature's methods are brutally efficient and utterly devastating. It doesn't merely kill, it eradicates. Eyewitness accounts, though rare and often fragmented due to the sheer horror, describe a complete dismemberment, a violent tearing apart of the victim, leaving behind little more than a gruesome, unrecognizable mess of organic material. The sheer ferocity of its attack is beyond human comprehension. Its long, skeletal fingers, seemingly delicate in their resting state, become instruments of unimaginable destruction, capable of ripping through flesh, bone, and even reinforced steel with terrifying ease. The victim's screams are undoubtedly short-lived, choked off by the overwhelming violence of the assault. There is no mercy, no hesitation, only a single-minded, horrifying efficiency in its task. The goal isn't just to kill, but to utterly obliterate the source of its rage. Once the victim is reduced to an unidentifiable pulp, SCP-096's rage abruptly dissipates. The guttural wailing ceases, the frantic convulsions subside, and it returns to its docile, whimpering state, often sitting amongst the gruesome remains, covering its face once more. This sudden shift from berserk killer to sorrowful, almost childlike entity is perhaps the most disturbing detail of all. It suggests a cycle, a horrifying pattern of profound distress, followed by an explosive, uncontrollable rampage, culminating in a return to its melancholic baseline. It implies a creature trapped in a perpetual loop of unbidden rage and subsequent silent grief over its own actions. For any who might witness this aftermath, the sight is unspeakable. The sheer, visceral destruction, coupled with the creature's immediate return to its docile state, leaves an indelible mark of horror. It emphasizes the absolute finality and brutality of an SCP-096 encounter. There is no surviving the moment it reaches you, only the terrifying, inevitable obliteration. Another chilling aspect of encountering SCP-096, often overlooked in the immediate panic, is the absolute lack of any discernible pattern or reason for its initial rage. It's not about malice or hunger or territorial defense. It's simply about being seen. The slightest glimpse, a fleeting pixel on a screen, a blurry image from miles away, any visual perception of its face, no matter how brief or accidental, is enough to condemn you. This randomness, this profound unfairness, adds another layer of terror. You don't have to provoke it. You don't have to threaten it. Simply existing in a way that allows you to see it seals your fate. This indiscriminate trigger means that even those who aren't directly looking at it can become victims. Imagine a security camera operator innocently monitoring a feed, only to inadvertently capture a distant, distorted image of SCP-096's face, or a satellite analyst reviewing routine imagery, suddenly finding their life irrevocably forfeit. The creature doesn't differentiate between intent or medium. A photograph, a drawing, a reflection. If the image of its face is perceived, the chain of events is set into motion. This makes SCP-096 a pervasive, insidious threat, lurking not just in the shadows, but potentially within the very fabric of our digitally connected world. The world shrinks, not just physically during the pursuit, but conceptually, as the very act of seeing becomes a death sentence. Furthermore, the experience of being marked by SCP-096 carries a unique psychological burden, the knowledge that you are utterly alone in your doom. While Foundation personnel might be aware of your plight, there is no intervention, no rescue. Resources are typically diverted to containment efforts, not to saving an individual who is already, by all practical measures, deceased. You are a loose end, a problem to be contained, and your impending demise is merely a necessary step in the larger, terrifying dance of anomaly management. This isolation amplifies the terror. There's no rallying cry, no heroic last stand, no hope of external aid. It's just you, your dwindling time, and the relentless pursuit of an unstoppable force. This profound solitude in the face of absolute horror is a critical element of what it's like to encounter SCP-096, transforming a mere chase into a deeply personal, inescapable nightmare. The world continues, oblivious to your specific terror, as you become a singularity of dread, hurtling towards an unavoidable, brutal end. The auditory experience of being targeted by SCP-096 is another key aspect of its horror. Before it even reaches you, the sound of its pursuit is a prelude to annihilation. As soon as its rage is triggered, its characteristic whimpering transforms into a terrifying, guttural shriek. This isn't a scream of pain, nor a roar of dominance. It's a sound laced with pure, unadulterated fury and an almost mechanical determination. It's the sound of something utterly broken, yet impossibly focused on its singular, destructive goal. As it closes the distance, this shriek intensifies, often accompanied by the terrifying cacophony of its rampage. Imagine the sound of concrete tearing, metals screeching, and structures collapsing, all punctuated by that relentless, inhuman wail. It's a soundscape of escalating destruction, growing louder and more frantic with every passing moment, informing the victim that their time is rapidly running out. This isn't a subtle predator. It announces its arrival with an earth-shattering symphony of chaos, leaving no room for doubt about its trajectory or its intent. The sounds become a countdown to your demise, each crash and shriek driving home the inescapable reality of your situation. And then there's the silence that follows. Once SCP-096 has reached and annihilated its target, the horrifying symphony of destruction abruptly ceases. The guttural shrieks die away, replaced by a return to its soft, sorrowful whimpering. This sudden shift is almost as unsettling as the rampage itself. It's the sound of a creature that has fulfilled its terrible purpose, a quiet lamentation over the violence it was compelled to commit. This post-kill sorrow isn't for the victim. It's for itself, for the burden of its own existence. This profound, almost mournful sound, heard only by those unlucky enough to be in the vicinity and survive the initial onslaught, serves as a chilling testament to the creature's complex and deeply disturbing nature. It's the sound of a monster that seems to regret its monstrousness, yet remains utterly bound by it. The sheer speed and destructive capability of SCP-096 are perhaps the most visceral aspects of what it's like to encounter it. Once triggered, its speed becomes truly incomprehensible. It doesn't merely run, it obliterates any obstacle in its path, tearing through steel, concrete, and flesh with equal terrifying ease. There's no strategic maneuvering, no attempt to bypass barriers. It simply punches through everything, creating a direct, horrifying path to its target. This makes any attempt to outrun it or to seek refuge behind fortifications utterly futile. The concept of a safe haven simply ceases to exist. Witnessing this raw, unbridled power, even from a distance, is enough to shatter the psyche. Imagine seeing a building, a mountain, or even a fortified military installation simply cease to be as SCP-096 passes through it. The landscape itself is no match for its single-minded rage. This isn't just a creature that kills. It's a force of nature, a localized, unstoppable disaster zone that moves with impossible velocity. The sheer scale of its destructive capability dwarfs any conventional threat, transforming the world into a fragile stage upon which your inevitable end will play out. And when it finally reaches its target, the act of obliteration is swift, brutal, and complete. There are no struggles, no protracted battles. It simply tears the victim apart, leaving behind only fragments that are often unidentifiable. This isn't about torture or prolonged suffering. It's about immediate, total erasure. The method is horrifyingly efficient, a testament to its singular focus and immense physical strength. The victim is not merely killed. They are unmade, reduced to nothing in a matter of seconds. This absolute, unyielding power, coupled with its terrifying speed, defines the climax of an SCP-096 encounter. It's It strips away all hope, all possibility of escape, and all dignity in death. It's a testament to a universe where some horrors simply cannot be reasoned with, cannot be contained by conventional means, and will, once provoked, pursue their grim task until nothing remains. The encounter is not just a fight for survival. It is a rapid, devastating lesson in ultimate powerlessness. One of the most insidious key aspects of encountering SCP-096 is the psychological torment that precedes its arrival. The moment you realize you've seen its face, a chilling certainty settles in. You are marked. There is no escape, no bargaining, no hiding. This isn't a threat you can prepare for with weapons or strategy. It's a death sentence delivered by a glance. The initial shock gives way to a profound, paralyzing dread as your mind grapples with the utter finality of your situation. Every second that passes is a second closer to an inevitable, violent end. This realization triggers an intense, isolated panic. You might be surrounded by people, but the doom is uniquely yours. They cannot help you, nor can they truly comprehend the terror you face. The clock starts ticking, and every moment is filled with the agonizing anticipation of its arrival. Your mind races, cycling through desperate, futile plans, knowing full well that none will work. Sleep becomes impossible, food unpalatable. Your entire existence is consumed by the encroaching shadow of SCP-096. This period of waiting is often described as more psychologically harrowing than the actual physical encounter, as the imagination conjures scenarios of destruction far more vivid and personal than any actual event. The knowledge that this creature, which you have seen for a fleeting moment, is now traversing continents, tearing through everything in its path, specifically to reach you, is a unique form of psychological torture. You become the singular focus of an unstoppable, mindless rage. Every distant rumble, every unexplained tremor, every news report of bizarre destruction far away serves as a terrifying confirmation that it is getting closer. You become acutely aware of your own fragility, your utter helplessness against a force that defies all understanding and all known laws. This prolonged period of dread culminates in a complete erosion of hope. By the time SCP-096 is upon you, the initial panic has often given way to a numb resignation. The psychological battle has been fought and lost long before the physical one begins. It's a journey into absolute despair, where every rational thought screams, "Run," but every instinct knows it's pointless. This profound, inescapable mental anguish is an intrinsic part of what it's like to encounter SCP-096, a terror that begins not with its physical presence, but with the irreversible act of seeing its face. A truly terrifying aspect of encountering SCP-096 lies in the complete unpredictability of its target acquisition, married with the absolute certainty of its pursuit. It doesn't matter if you saw a live feed, a photograph, a drawing, or even a highly distorted, pixelated image. If the visual information reaching your brain is interpreted as its face, the trigger is pulled. This makes the encounter uniquely insidious, as even a fleeting, accidental glimpse, perhaps from a security camera glitch or a recovered damaged data file, can seal your fate. There's no intent required, no conscious act of malice, merely the perception. This indiscriminate targeting means that anyone, anywhere, at any time, could inadvertently become its next victim. Imagine scrolling through an old archive, stumbling upon a corrupted image file, and seeing something that vaguely resembles a face. That momentary flicker, that barely registered perception could be enough. The nightmare begins without warning, without cause, simply by the unfortunate alignment of pixels or light. It transforms the act of seeing into a potentially lethal gamble, making even mundane visual interactions fraught with unseen peril. The lack of any discernible pattern or preference in its victims further amplifies the horror. It doesn't target the curious, the reckless, or the malicious. It targets anyone who sees its face. This makes the threat pervasive and impossible to truly guard against beyond extreme, almost impossible, containment protocols. The sheer randomness of its activation means that even the most cautious individual could fall prey to a chain of events entirely beyond their control. A stray reflection, an accidental glance at a monitor someone else is viewing, a recovered piece of forbidden media. This aspect underscores a profound helplessness. You cannot negotiate with it, cannot reason with it, and cannot predict who will next suffer its wrath. The encounter is not a consequence of your actions in a moral sense, but merely a result of visual perception. It's a chilling reminder of how fragile our control over our own sensory input truly is, and how a single, unintended moment can lead to an inescapable, brutal end at the hands of an entity that recognizes no boundaries, no excuses, and no mercy. Beyond the initial dread and the inescapable pursuit, a crucial key aspect of encountering SCP-096 is the sheer brutal efficiency of the termination itself. When it finally reaches its target, there is no struggle, no prolonged fight, merely an instant, overwhelming obliteration. Witness accounts, sparse and heavily redacted as they are, consistently describe a blur of motion, a terrifying shriek, and then nothing. The victim is not merely killed, they are dismembered, torn apart, utterly annihilated. It's a testament to SCP-096's immense physical power and singular focus. This isn't a creature that savors its kill or engages in protracted torment once it's on sight. Its sole, overriding directive, once triggered, is to eliminate the source of the visual perception. The violence is absolute, swift, and leaves behind little more than a gruesome, unrecognizable mess. There's no opportunity for a last stand, no chance to plead, no moment for final thoughts. Your existence simply ceases, dissolved by an incomprehensible force. This finality, this absolute and brutal erasure, is a terrifying culmination of the preceding psychological torment. The efficiency of its kill also highlights the futility of any defense. Walls, armored vehicles, fortified bunkers, all are rendered meaningless. SCP-096 tears through them with ease, its bony claws and immense strength making short work of any obstacle. The target is never truly safe until it is dead. This means that even if you manage to barricade yourself in what you thought was an impenetrable fortress, the only thing you've truly achieved is delaying the inevitable, and perhaps making your final moments even more claustrophobic and terrifying. The sounds of it tearing through layers of concrete and steel, knowing it's coming for you, must be an unparalleled horror. Furthermore, the lack of a discernible motive beyond the visual trigger makes the act of termination even more chilling. There's no malice, no sadism in its actions, only a pure, unadulterated rage response. It doesn't hate you, it simply must destroy you because you saw its face. This impersonal, almost mechanical brutality, stripped of any human emotion, elevates SCP-096 from a monster to a force of nature, a terrifying, unstoppable phenomenon that once activated will run its course to its horrifying conclusion, leaving only shattered remains and the lingering stench of fear in its wake. The encounter is not just about death. It's about being utterly erased by something that doesn't even acknowledge your individuality, only your violation of its unseen rule. Perhaps the most insidious key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of isolation and utter abandonment that washes over the victim. Once triggered, the pursuit is a singular event between SCP-096 and its target. No one else matters. No one else is in danger from it. This means that any attempts at rescue, intervention, or even basic assistance by others are not only futile, but often actively detrimental to the rescuers themselves. Imagine the horror. You've seen its face. You know it's coming. Your friends, your family, your colleagues, they are all safe from this particular threat. Their lives are not directly at stake. This creates an unbearable psychological burden, a chilling realization that your doom is uniquely yours. While others might try to help, their efforts are powerless against an entity that only cares about you. They can only watch, or if they are unlucky enough to glimpse its face in their attempt to shield you, join you in your terrifying fate. This isolation is compounded by the fact that SCP-096's rage is so singularly focused. It will rip through anything and anyone that stands between it and its target, not out of a desire to harm others, but simply because they are obstacles. A rescuer might be swatted aside, or inadvertently exposed to its face if they get too close. The chilling implication is that your survival, or lack thereof, is your problem, and anyone who tries to make it their problem risks a similar horrifying end. The knowledge that you are utterly alone in your impending doom, that the world continues around you, indifferent to your personal apocalypse, is a unique form of psychological torture. You are marked irrevocably, and the universe has decided your time is up. There's no shared struggle, no camaraderie in the face of this particular horror. It's a private, inescapable nightmare, witnessed by a helpless world that can only document the terrifying trajectory of your final moments. This makes the encounter not just a physical threat, but a profound existential dread, where your very existence becomes a solitary, doomed journey towards an inevitable, brutal end, with no hope of shared comfort or collective resistance. The world shrinks to only you and the approaching horror. Another chilling key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the insidious nature of its trigger, the mere act of seeing. It's not about intent, not about malice, not even about a clear, direct view. A pixelated image on a grainy CCTV feed, a fleeting glimpse in a distorted photograph, a quick glance at its drawn depiction, any visual perception of its face, no matter how brief or indirect, is enough to seal your fate. This indiscriminate trigger mechanism infuses every potential interaction with a profound sense of unpredictable peril. Think about the implications of this. In our hypervisual world, where images are constantly created, shared, and consumed, the risk of accidental activation is ever present and terrifyingly high. A researcher reviewing an archival photograph, a security guard monitoring surveillance footage, an artist sketching a creature from a nightmare. Any of these seemingly innocuous acts could inadvertently condemn an individual to an agonizing death. There's no safe way to study it, no truly secure method to contain the concept of its image from leaking into the collective consciousness. This indiscriminate trigger fosters a pervasive anxiety, particularly within the Foundation personnel tasked with its containment. Every blurred photo, every grainy video, every artistic rendering of a pale, elongated figure becomes a potential death sentence waiting to be delivered. The very act of attempting to understand or manage the anomaly is fraught with lethal danger. It's a constant low hum of dread, knowing that one wrong flicker of an image, one careless glance, could unleash an unstoppable force directly upon you. The horror lies in the sheer unfairness of it all. You don't have to provoke it, threaten it, or even understand it. You just have to see it. This makes SCP-096 a walking, or rather running, death sentence for anyone unlucky enough to have their gaze fall upon its hideous visage. It transforms the most basic human sense, sight, into a weapon against the beholder, turning curiosity into a fatal flaw and observation into an act of self-condemnation. It's a game of Russian roulette where the bullets are constantly multiplying, and the act of looking at the gun is what pulls the trigger. Another terrifying key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the relentless, unstoppable nature of its pursuit. Once its rage state is triggered, SCP-096 becomes an entity of pure, unadulterated momentum. Walls of steel, miles of concrete, vast oceans, even the vacuum of space. None of these present a significant barrier to its single-minded objective. It will tear, smash, or burrow through any obstruction with terrifying efficiency, driven solely by the need to reach its target. Imagine the sheer, mind-numbing dread of knowing that no matter where you run, no matter what you hide behind, it will find you. There is no sanctuary, no safe haven. The highest mountain, the deepest bunker, the most remote island, all are equally vulnerable. The pursuit is not a chase in the traditional sense, where evasion might offer a glimmer of hope. It is an inexorable, predetermined trajectory towards your obliteration. Every obstacle you place in its path only demonstrates its boundless capacity for destruction, reinforcing the terrifying truth that escape is impossible. This relentless drive strips away any illusion of control or agency. You are not a participant in a struggle. You are merely a destination. The world transforms into a mere set of temporary delays, each one crumbling before its advance. The sounds of its approach, the distant screams, the rending of metal, the collapse of structures, become the soundtrack to your final hours, a chilling crescendo building to your inevitable end. The knowledge that it will travel across continents, through any environment, simply to reach you, imbues the experience with a cosmic horror. It's not merely a monster hunting you, it's an immutable law of nature bending itself to your destruction. There is no outrunning destiny when destiny itself is a pale, screaming terror with impossibly long limbs. Perhaps one of the most chilling key aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the sheer brutality and efficiency of the final moments. Once it reaches its target, there is no struggle, no prolonged fight, merely an instantaneous, savage obliteration. Eyewitness accounts, few and far between and often heavily redacted, speak of a gruesome tearing apart, a swift dismantling of the victim into unrecognizable fragments. It's not just killing. It's an act of utter annihilation, leaving behind little more than a blood-soaked stain and scattered biological material. This isn't a creature that savors the kill or plays with its prey. Its rage, while terrifyingly potent, is also incredibly focused and efficient. The moment it makes contact, its objective is fulfilled with overwhelming force. This rapid, complete destruction denies the victim any chance of a final plea, a last thought, or even a moment to fully comprehend their demise. It's a sudden, violent punctuation mark at the end of a terrifying chase. The aftermath is equally disturbing. Once its target is utterly destroyed, SCP-096 immediately reverts to its docile, weeping state. The blood-soaked hands drop, the screaming subsides, and the creature simply sits amidst the carnage it created, often sobbing quietly. This abrupt shift from unstoppable predator to remorseful, childlike figure is deeply unsettling. It suggests a tragic cycle, an uncontrollable, destructive impulse followed by an almost human-like sorrow. It implies a lack of malice in its rampage, only a desperate, violent reaction to being seen. This sudden cessation of violence, coupled with its return to a state of apparent distress, adds a layer of disturbing complexity to the horror. It's not a monster that enjoys its work. It's a force of nature, driven to an act it seems to regret. This makes the encounter not just terrifying, but profoundly tragic, a stark reminder of the indiscriminate and devastating power it wields, and the desolate peace that follows its horrific fulfillment. Another crucial aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of isolation and futility that descends upon the victim. From the moment the trigger occurs, you are utterly alone in your predicament. The Foundation's protocols, while extensive, primarily focus on containment and mitigation, not on rescue once a target has been designated. There are no heroes coming to save you, no last-minute interventions. Your fate is sealed, and you are left to face it in terrifying solitude. This isolation isn't just physical, it's psychological. The knowledge that SCP-096's pursuit is so singularly focused on you, and that nothing can divert it, creates an almost unbearable mental burden. Any attempt to warn others or seek help feels utterly meaningless, as anyone who might try to intervene would only become another casualty or simply be swept aside by the unstoppable entity. You become a pariah of doom, a magnet for inevitable destruction, and the only mercy is that you are spared the agony of watching others suffer on your behalf. The futility of resistance is another crushing weight. Trying to fight back against a creature that can tear through fortified bunkers like tissue paper is a tragic joke. Every desperate action, every frantic attempt to escape, only serves to highlight the vast, insurmountable power difference. This realization can lead to a kind of fatalistic despair, where the only remaining choice is how to spend your final, agonizing moments. Do you run, knowing it's pointless? Do you hide, knowing it will find you? Or do you simply succumb to the terror, waiting for the inevitable? This feeling of being utterly cut off, with no hope of external aid and no viable means of self-preservation, is a unique brand of horror. It strips away not just your life, but your dignity, your agency, and any illusion of safety in the world. You are not just being hunted, you are being eradicated, systematically and without recourse, by a force that cares nothing for your existence save for the need to erase it. The silence of the world around you as SCP-096 screams towards you is perhaps the most deafening sound of all. The escalating dread is perhaps the most insidious key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096. It's not an instant death. It's a drawn-out, agonizing wait for the inevitable. The moment you see its face, the clock begins ticking, and every second that passes is imbued with a deepening sense of terror. You know it's coming for you, and you know nothing can stop it. This knowledge transforms ordinary surroundings into a suffocating cage, and every shadow seems to writhe with its impending arrival. Imagine the terror of hearing the distant screams, faint at first, then growing steadily louder, more frantic, more utterly inhuman. Each increase in volume is a tangible measure of its approach, a chilling countdown to your demise. The sound itself is a weapon, eroding your sanity long before the creature itself arrives. It's the sound of pure, unadulterated rage, a sound that promises nothing but utter devastation. This escalating dread is amplified by the sheer unpredictability of its path. SCP-096 doesn't follow roads or conventional routes. It smashes through buildings, tears through mountainsides, and plunges through the ocean depths, all to reach you. You could be on another continent, safe behind layers of concrete and steel, and still, the distant, rising wail would find you, a chilling siren song of your impending end. The world shrinks around you, becoming nothing more than a temporary obstacle in its relentless pursuit. Every creak of a floorboard, every distant siren, every sudden noise becomes a heart-stopping moment of pure panic. Your mind races, conjuring images of its emaciated form tearing through the walls, its long skeletal fingers reaching for you. This psychological torment is arguably more horrifying than the physical encounter itself. The fear doesn't just precede the monster, it becomes a monster in itself, gnawing at your insides, stripping away hope and reason until all that remains is raw, primal terror. The anticipation of its arrival is a living nightmare, a prolonged descent into madness before the final brutal silence. The final brutal aspect of encountering SCP-096 is the sheer, overwhelming physical annihilation. When it finally reaches you, there is no struggle, no prolonged fight for survival. It is instantaneous, absolute, and utterly devastating. The creature's strength is beyond comprehension, its limbs capable of tearing through flesh, bone, and reinforced steel with equal, terrifying ease. Imagine the force of a freight train combined with the precision of a predator in a blind frenzy. Your body, your very existence, becomes a mere impediment to be removed. Bones shatter, organs rupture, and flesh is pulped in a horrifying display of raw, unrestrained power. There is no time for pain to fully register, no moment to scream a final word. Just a sudden, explosive impact, and then nothing. The brutality isn't just in the act itself, but in the complete lack of malice. SCP-096 doesn't revel in its destruction. It is simply fulfilling an uncontrollable imperative. This makes the obliteration even more chilling. You are not a victim of cruelty, but of a biological function, a mechanism of vengeance triggered by an accidental glance. You are less a target and more an anomaly to be corrected, removed from existence with chilling efficiency. What remains, if anything, is often unrecognizable. The Foundation has documented instances where little more than a crimson smear or a few scattered fragments were left of a human being. It is a complete erasure, a violent unmaking that leaves no trace, no recognizable remains, only the chilling aftermath of an entity driven to absolute rage. This finality, this complete and utter destruction, is the grim, inescapable end to what it's like to encounter SCP-096. It is the ultimate horror, not just death, but complete and utter oblivion, enacted by a sorrowful, white-skinned monster. Another chilling key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the complete and utter lack of discernment in its reaction. It doesn't matter if you glimpsed a blurry photograph in a classified document, a pixelated image on a screen, or saw its gaunt face in person for a fraction of a second. The effect is the same. The rage is triggered, the hunt begins, and your fate is sealed. There's no room for apologies, no plea for mercy, no chance to explain it was an accident. The mechanism is purely reactive, a primordial response to a specific visual stimulus. This indiscriminate nature adds another layer of horror. You could be a seasoned Foundation agent, fully aware of the protocols, and yet a momentary lapse, an accidental exposure, could condemn you. You could be an innocent civilian scrolling through a forum, unaware of the forbidden image you just witnessed, and suddenly find yourself the target of an unstoppable force. It transforms the world into a minefield of potential doom, where a single, unthinking glance can unleash hell. Consider the implications of this lack of discernment. It means intention is irrelevant. Malice or curiosity, a fleeting glimpse or a prolonged stare, all are met with the same terrifying consequence. This removes any sense of personal agency from the encounter. You are not being judged, you are simply an object that has triggered a response. It's a cold, mechanical form of retribution, devoid of emotion or understanding, which makes it all the more terrifying. There are no warnings, no second chances. The moment the visual information is processed, the transformation begins. The docile, weeping creature shifts, its sorrow replaced by an unholy shriek, its limbs elongating, its strength multiplying. This immediate, irreversible change means that by the time you realize your mistake, it is already too late. The gears have turned, the hunt has begun, and the world has irrevocably narrowed to the singular, terrifying pursuit of you. It's an encounter defined by a single, catastrophic error, leading to an inescapable, violent end, regardless of intent. Beyond the physical and psychological torment, a crucial aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of inevitability. Once seen, the clock starts ticking, and there is absolutely no known method of stopping the creature's pursuit, short of the target's death. You cannot hide, you cannot outrun it, and no amount of fortification will protect you. Every barrier, every wall, every mile of distance is merely a temporary delay, a brief reprieve before the inevitable. This inevitability breeds a unique brand of despair. Imagine knowing, with absolute certainty, that a force of unimaginable power is relentlessly closing in on you, and that your demise is not a possibility, but a preordained conclusion. Every shadow seems to hold its form. Every distant shriek or tremor of the ground feels like its approach. The world shrinks, your focus narrowing to the singular, horrifying reality of your impending doom. Even the Foundation, with all its resources and containment protocols, has found no way to truly stop 096 once it has locked onto a target. Attempts to intercept it or neutralize it mid-pursuit have only resulted in catastrophic collateral damage and further casualties. The creature simply cannot be deterred from its path. This unyielding nature reinforces the victim's powerlessness, cementing the horrifying truth that they are utterly alone in facing their end. This isn't just about dying. It's about the inescapable journey towards that death, knowing that every breath you take is bringing you closer to a violent, unavoidable conclusion. The inevitability transforms the encounter into a drawn-out execution, where the condemned is forced to witness their own doom approaching, powerless to alter its course. It is the ultimate nightmare, where hope itself is annihilated long before the body. Another insidious aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the chilling contrast between its enraged pursuit and its subsequent sorrowful docility. The creature is not inherently malevolent in its default state. It typically sits hunched over, weeping softly, seemingly distressed by its own existence. This dichotomy adds a perverse psychological layer to the horror. You are not being hunted by a monstrous demon reveling in destruction, but by a profoundly unhappy entity driven to an uncontrollable, violent frenzy by a specific involuntary trigger. This means that its rampage is not born of malice, but of a reactive, almost pathological response. It doesn't hate you. It merely must eliminate you because you have seen its face. This lack of personal animosity, ironically, makes the encounter even more disturbing. There's no dark satisfaction for 096, no gleeful pursuit. It is a biological imperative, a hardwired function that transforms a seemingly sorrowful being into an unstoppable engine of destruction. Imagine the horror of being chased by something that isn't actively trying to cause you suffering, but is simply compelled to end your existence. There's no personal vendetta, no twisted game. It's a cold, mechanical process activated by your accidental gaze. This can evoke a strange, unsettling pity for the creature, even as it obliterates everything in its path to reach you. It's a victim of its own nature, just as you are a victim of its trigger. The return to docility after the target is eliminated is perhaps the most unsettling part of this cycle. Once its purpose is fulfilled, once your existence is erased, SCP-096 reverts to its original mournful state. The rage dissipates, the shrieks cease, and the quiet weeping resumes. It's a stark, horrifying reminder that its violence is not a choice, but a terrible, unavoidable consequence. A cycle of suffering for both the observer and, in its own silent way, for the creature itself. This cyclical nature ensures that the terror isn't just in the pursuit, but in the disturbing knowledge of the creature's own inescapable torment. Perhaps one of the most chilling aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the complete and utter lack of human comprehension regarding its motivation. We understand anger, vengeance, even predatory instinct. But 096's reaction defies all logical frameworks. It's not about self-defense or hunger or a perceived threat to its territory. It's solely about its face being seen. This makes its violence feel alien, unknowable, and profoundly more terrifying. There's no bargaining, no appeal to reason, no way to placate it. Its trigger is a simple visual input, and its response is absolute. This incomprehensibility strips away any sense of control or understanding from the victim. You aren't being judged or punished, or even specifically targeted for any action you took. You simply saw, and for that, you must cease to exist. This cold, mechanistic response from an otherwise seemingly sentient being is deeply unsettling. The Foundation has spent countless hours attempting to understand why this reaction occurs. Is it pain? Shame? A programmed response from an ancient, forgotten purpose? The lack of answers only amplifies the dread. When facing a threat, the human mind craves understanding, a framework to process the danger. With 096, there is none. Just a blank, horrifying void where motive should be. This void of comprehension extends to its physical capabilities. How can a gaunt, emaciated figure possess such destructive power? How can it traverse continents in mere hours, unaffected by terrain or obstacles? These are questions that remain unanswered, further cementing its status as an entity beyond our grasp. The encounter becomes a confrontation with the truly unknown, a force that operates outside the laws of physics and biology as we understand them. And in that unknowing lies a terror far deeper than any mere physical threat. It's the terror of the impossible made real, bearing down upon you with relentless, inexplicable fury. The chilling isolation of encountering SCP-096 is another key aspect of what makes the experience so profoundly terrifying. Once you have seen its face, you are utterly alone in your fate. No one can intervene. No one can save you. The Foundation, with all its resources and advanced technology, has no protocol for rescue once 096 has been triggered. Their focus shifts from containment of the anomaly to containing the collateral damage it inflicts during its pursuit. Imagine the crushing weight of that realization. You become a singular target, hunted by an unstoppable force, and the world can do nothing but watch, or more likely, simply brace for the inevitable destruction you will bring in your wake. There's no heroic last stand, no cavalry coming over the hill. Your doom is a private affair, played out across vast distances with only the screams of SCP-096 for company. This isolation is psychological as well as physical. The knowledge that your demise is sealed and that every moment is merely a delay can induce a unique form of mental torment. You might try to warn others, to explain the horror bearing down on you, but their understanding is limited and their capacity to help is non-existent. You are a dying man walking, and everyone around you is simply an unwitting witness to your final terrifying journey. Even if you were to somehow broadcast your plight to the entire world, it would change nothing. The entity would still come. Your desperate pleas would fall on deaf ears, or more accurately, on ears that can do nothing but listen to your final panicked breaths. This profound solitude in the face of absolute, unavoidable destruction is a cruel twist of the knife. It means you don't just face death, you face it utterly by yourself, knowing that your end is not only certain, but also entirely unpreventable by any power on Earth. The sheer, overwhelming speed and destructive power of SCP-096, once enraged, is another fundamental aspect of what it's like to encounter it. This isn't a slow, creeping horror. It's a terrifyingly efficient, almost surgical obliteration. Once its target is locked in, its previously docile demeanor shatters, replaced by a frenzy of inhuman speed and strength. It will tear through concrete, steel, and flesh with equal horrifying ease. Imagine the sound. The rending of metal, the splintering of wood, the deafening roar of its pursuit, growing louder with every passing moment. Obstacles that would halt tanks are mere inconveniences to SCP-096. It doesn't navigate around them. It smashes directly through them, creating a path of utter devastation in its wake. This relentless, unyielding progression paints a vivid picture of its terrifying efficacy. Witness accounts, sparse and often traumatized, speak of the blur of its movement, the impossible distances covered in impossibly short times. It doesn't run so much as it launches itself, covering kilometers in minutes, driven by an unholy imperative. This speed eliminates any hope of outrunning it, any chance of finding a sanctuary it cannot breach. There is no fortress strong enough, no distance great enough to protect you once the hunt begins. And then there's the destruction it leaves behind. Cities scarred, landscapes altered, all evidence of its furious passage. It's not just a hunter. It's a force of nature, a localized, unstoppable catastrophe. The knowledge that such power is directed solely at you, that every broken wall and splintered beam is a testament to its singular focus on your eradication, adds an almost surreal layer to the terror. It's not just your life that's ending, but potentially everything in its path, all because you glimpsed its sorrowful, unseen face. The sheer scale of its destructive capability, all brought to bear for one specific purpose, is a terrifying key to understanding the encounter. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of encountering SCP-096, and a key contributor to its horror, is the psychological torment it inflicts long before the physical obliteration. The moment you see its face, a timer begins, and you become acutely aware of your impending, inescapable doom. This isn't a quick, unexpected death. It's a drawn-out, agonizing countdown to your own demise. Imagine the dread that settles in your bones. Every shadow seems to writhe. Every distant sound becomes the harbinger of its approach. Paranoia becomes your constant companion. You know it's coming. You just don't know when or from where. The world transforms into a vast, hostile arena, with you as the lone, terrified prey. Your mind races, desperately searching for an escape that doesn't exist, a solution to an unsolvable problem. Sleep becomes impossible, haunted by visions of its pale, emaciated form and the guttural cries of its rage. This psychological torment is often far more debilitating than any physical injury. Victims, even those who survive for a period after exposure, usually due to sheer luck or Foundation intervention for study purposes, which rarely ends well for the subject, are often found in states of extreme mental breakdown. They babble incoherently about the shrieking horror, the pale man, the unseen eyes. Their sanity is fractured long before their bodies are. The knowledge that your death is not merely possible, but guaranteed, and that it is being delivered by an entity that feels no malice, only an uncontrollable, sorrowful rage, adds a layer of existential dread. You are not being punished. You are simply an unfortunate trigger. This lack of personal animosity makes its pursuit even more terrifying, as there is no reasoning with it, no appeasing it, no bargaining for your life. It is an indifferent yet utterly destructive force. This prolonged period of dread, the creeping certainty of your end, and the psychological disintegration that precedes it, defines much of what it's truly like to encounter SCP-096. It's not just a physical threat. It's a mental siege, designed to break you long before it breaks your bones. Another crucial key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the absolute finality and brutality of its attack. When it finally reaches its target, there is no struggle, no prolonged fight. The obliteration is swift, thorough, and utterly merciless. This isn't just death. It's a complete dismantling, a reduction to nothingness. Eyewitness accounts, often from remote cameras or audio logs, paint a gruesome picture. The sounds are horrific. Wet, tearing noises, the sickening crunch of bone, followed by an abrupt, chilling silence. There's no scream of agony from the victim, only the guttural roars of SCP-096, which cease almost immediately after the target is eradicated. It's a testament to the speed and efficiency of its destructive capabilities. The remains, if any, are often unidentifiable. Forensic teams describe scenes of utter devastation where human matter is indistinguishable from the surrounding debris. It's as if the victim was simply erased, scrubbed from existence with extreme prejudice. This level of brutality underscores the futility of resistance. There is no fighting back, no chance of survival, only the inevitable, horrific end. This isn't a creature that toys with its prey or prolongs suffering for sadistic pleasure. Its rage is focused, primal, and culminates in immediate, complete annihilation. The moment of impact is the end of everything. This swift, brutal finality is a stark reminder of the entity's power and the utter helplessness of its victims. It ensures that the encounter, while psychologically tormenting in its lead-up, concludes with an abrupt, devastating violence that leaves no room for doubt about the outcome. It is the ultimate, inescapable fate, delivered with terrifying precision. Beyond the psychological torment and the brutal finality, another key aspect of encountering SCP-096 is the sheer, overwhelming sense of futility. From the moment of exposure, you are marked, and there is absolutely nothing, no action, no defense, no hiding place that can alter your fate. This isn't a challenge to be overcome, it's a sentence to be carried out. Consider the Foundation's own desperate attempts to contain SCP-096, even after it has been triggered. They have deployed specialized containment teams, utilized heavy ordnance, and even attempted to incinerate it. All have failed to stop its relentless pursuit. Walls of steel, miles of concrete, vast oceans. None of these impede its progress. It simply tears through, over or under anything in its path with horrifying ease. Entire cities could be razed, populations evacuated, and still SCP-096 would find its way to that single, unfortunate individual. This omnidirectional, unstoppable trajectory is what truly isolates the victim. You are not just running from a monster. You are running from a force of nature that has been programmed by some cruel, unknown mechanism to find you and end you. There is no cavalry coming, no last-minute rescue. The Foundation itself, with all its resources and anomalous capabilities, has acknowledged its inability to protect a triggered target. This profound futility breeds a unique kind of terror. It strips away all hope, all agency. You are reduced to a spectator in your own impending doom, watching the world around you become a blur as you are chased by something that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be stopped, and cannot be escaped. The encounter with SCP-096 is a chilling testament to the universe's indifference, a horrifying reminder that some fates are simply undeniable, regardless of human will or ingenuity. One of the most insidious key aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the source of the trigger itself. It is not an act of malice or an intentional provocation that sets it off. It is simply seeing its face. This means the trigger is often accidental, unintentional, and completely innocent. You don't have to be looking for it. A fleeting glimpse, a pixelated image on a screen, a sketch in a forgotten document, any visual representation is enough. Imagine scrolling through historical photographs, or perhaps a deep web forum, and a blurry, almost indistinct image flashes across your screen for a fraction of a second. You don't even register it fully. Your conscious mind dismisses it as static or an anomaly. But somewhere, perhaps thousands of miles away, a dormant horror awakens. This randomness, this utterly arbitrary nature of the trigger compounds the terror. You are not being punished for a crime. You are simply an unlucky passerby in the vast, indifferent tapestry of existence. This accidental nature extends to the very medium through which the face is perceived. It doesn't have to be a direct line of sight. A photograph, a video recording, even a highly detailed artistic rendition, all are sufficient. This makes the threat pervasive and almost impossible to fully mitigate in a world saturated with digital imagery. The simple act of seeing in any form becomes a potential death sentence. The horror lies in this profound unfairness. There is no intent required, no understanding of the danger. A child unknowingly sketching a distorted figure from a nightmare, an artist depicting a grotesque creature, a researcher studying classified files, all could inadvertently seal their own doom. The trigger isn't about your actions or your intentions. It's about the mere fleeting act of perception. This chilling reality means that anyone, anywhere, could be one innocent glance away from initiating the most terrifying pursuit imaginable, making the world a far more dangerous and unpredictable place for merely existing. It's a silent, ever-present threat, lurking in the very fabric of visual information. Another chilling aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound and utter isolation of the victim. Once triggered, the target is entirely alone in their ordeal. No one can intervene, no one can help, and no one can even truly comprehend the specific terror they are facing. The chase becomes a deeply personal, solitary nightmare. Imagine the absolute horror of realizing you are the only one SCP-096 is coming for. It will ignore everyone else, tear through any innocent bystanders or obstacles without a second glance, its singular focus locked onto you. Friends, family, strangers, they are all just collateral, irrelevant to its terrifying objective. This isn't a rampaging monster causing general destruction. It's a precision-guided horror, honed to extinguish one specific life. This isolation is amplified by the fact that those around you, even if they understand the danger, are powerless. They can call for help, they can warn you, but they cannot physically intercede to save you. Their efforts would be futile, likely only leading to their own demise without distracting or harming SCP-096. You are, in essence, an island of despair, watched by others who can only bear witness to your inevitable end. The psychological toll of this isolation is immense. To know that you are singled out, hunted by an unstoppable force, with no hope of external aid, strips away every last vestige of comfort and community. It's a complete severance from the human experience of shared struggle. Your suffering is yours alone, and your demise will be a solo performance of terror, witnessed by a creature driven by an uncontrollable rage it cannot comprehend. This singular, unyielding focus on one victim makes the encounter with SCP-096 not just a physical threat, but a deeply, terribly lonely one. One of the most terrifying key aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the sheer unstoppable nature of its pursuit. Once triggered, there is no barrier, no distance, no force on Earth that can halt its advance towards its target. This isn't just a fast creature. It's an entity that defies conventional physics and logistics in its single-minded quest. Consider the implications. Walls of reinforced concrete, kilometers of solid rock, the crushing depths of the ocean, or the vacuum of space. None of these present any meaningful impediment to SCP-096. It will tear through them, burrow under them, or simply bypass them with impossible speed and force. There are accounts of it traversing continents in a matter of hours, covering distances that would take conventional vehicles days or weeks. This means that hiding is a temporary illusion, and escape is a fantasy. The psychological impact of this reality is devastating. Imagine the dread of knowing that no matter where you go, no matter how many layers of protection you pile between yourself and the approaching horror, it will eventually reach you. Every locked door becomes a paper barrier, every fortified bunker a temporary coffin. The world shrinks, not because you are confined, but because the threat can reach anywhere. This relentless, unyielding pursuit means that the victim is given time to contemplate their inevitable doom. The chase is often less a desperate flight and more a prolonged period of agonizing anticipation. You might have hours, even days, depending on your initial distance from SCP-096, to fully internalize the fact that death is not just coming, but is unstoppable. It's a slow-motion execution, where the executioner is a creature of impossible might, and the world itself bends to its singular purpose. The only true escape is the merciful oblivion of its final, brutal embrace. This relentless, inevitable closing of the distance is perhaps the most defining and soul-crushing characteristic of an SCP-096 encounter. Perhaps one of the most insidious key aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the chilling irony of its non-malicious intent. Unlike many monsters driven by hunger, sadism, or a desire for chaos, SCP-096 doesn't seem to derive pleasure from its rampage. Its aggression is a reactive, uncontrollable compulsion, not a conscious act of malice. This lack of malicious intent makes the horror even more profound. You are not being hunted by a creature that hates you or that seeks to torment you. You are simply a trigger, an unfortunate accident that has set in motion an unstoppable, instinctual response. It's akin to being crushed by a falling rock. The rock doesn't hate you, it just is. But in this case, the rock is a screaming, impossibly fast entity that will tear you to shreds. The Foundation's observations highlight this tragedy. Before and after an activation event, SCP-096 is typically docile, almost mournful, often found weeping or curled up, seemingly distressed by its own existence. This suggests a creature trapped in a cycle it cannot control, a being that may even regret the carnage it causes. But this knowledge offers no comfort to the victim. The creature's inner turmoil, its potential sadness, means nothing when it is tearing through walls to get to you. This element removes any possibility of reasoning, bargaining, or even understanding the monster's motives. There's no dark intelligence to outwit, no twisted logic to exploit. It's a pure, unthinking force of nature, albeit one with a horrifyingly specific target. The victim is not a foe, but merely an object that has inadvertently activated a biological mechanism. This makes the encounter feel less like a battle and more like an unavoidable natural disaster, amplified by the terrifying sentience of the force bearing down on you. It's a tragedy for SCP-096, perhaps, but an absolute meaningless terror for the one who saw its face. Another profoundly disturbing aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the sheer brutality and totality of the annihilation it inflicts. This isn't just about being killed, it's about being utterly erased, leaving virtually no trace behind. The creature doesn't merely end a life, it reduces its target to less than dust. When SCP-096 finally reaches its victim, the encounter is swift, violent, and absolute. Eyewitness accounts, often from remote observation or retrieved logs, describe a whirlwind of rending flesh, shattered bone, and pulverized organs. The victim is torn apart, limb from limb, often within seconds. The creature's strength is immense, its claws and teeth capable of ripping through virtually anything. But it goes beyond mere dismemberment. SCP-096 is observed to continue its assault until not even significant fragments of the victim remain. It will consume, pulverize, and scatter the remains until there's little left to identify, sometimes even consuming bone fragments. This isn't just a kill, it's a systematic, furious erasure. The psychological terror of this is immense. It robs the victim of even the dignity of a recognizable corpse, a final resting place. There is no body to be found, no grave to be mourned over. For those who might witness the aftermath, it's a horrifying testament to the creature's destructive capability, a bloody, pulverized smear where a person once stood. This complete obliteration underscores the finality of the encounter. There is no survival, no partial escape, no lingering hope. It's an end so absolute, so devastating, that it leaves an indelible mark on anyone who even remotely comprehends its scope. The final moments are not just about pain, but about being utterly unmade, dissolved into nothingness by a creature that will not stop until every last vestige of its trigger is gone. It is a death that wipes you from existence, leaving only a void. The psychological torment inflicted by SCP-096 during its pursuit is a key aspect of what it's like to encounter it, arguably as terrifying as the physical threat itself. This isn't a quick, unexpected death. It's a drawn-out, agonizing wait for the inevitable. The chase is designed to break the mind long before the body. Once activated, the victim knows, with absolute certainty, that their death is coming. There is no hope of escape, no chance of rescue, no possibility of intervention. This knowledge settles in like a cold, suffocating blanket, stripping away all sense of security and agency. Every moment spent alive after viewing SCP-096's face is a moment steeped in escalating dread. Imagine the terror of hearing its distant, mournful wails transform into enraged shrieks, growing louder, closer, with every passing minute. You might be safe for now, behind layers of concrete and steel, but you know those barriers are temporary. You know they will fall. The sound of its approach, the tearing metal, the splintering wood, the screams of anyone foolish enough to stand in its path, becomes the soundtrack to your final hours. The mind races, desperately searching for a non-existent solution. You might try to run, to hide, to barricade yourself, but each futile attempt only underscores the hopelessness of your situation. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow, every unexpected noise becomes amplified, a potential sign of its arrival. Sleep becomes impossible, replaced by a hypervigilant state of terror. This extended period of psychological torture amplifies the physical horror to come. By the time SCP-096 reaches its target, the victim is often already a shattered wreck, their will to live eroded by the relentless, inescapable march of their own doom. It's not just the fear of death, but the profound, soul-crushing certainty of it, stretched out over an unbearable duration, that defines this horrific encounter. One of the most insidious aspects of encountering SCP-096, and perhaps what truly elevates it beyond a mere monster, is the profound sense of futility and absolute helplessness it instills. This isn't just about being unable to fight back. It's about the utter meaninglessness of any action taken once the trigger is pulled. From the moment its face is seen, the victim becomes a target, and the universe seemingly conspires to ensure their demise. Every escape route is a dead end. Every attempt at defense is laughably inadequate. No fortress is strong enough, no distance is great enough, no intervention is effective. The very fabric of reality seems to bend to facilitate SCP-096's relentless pursuit. Imagine the crushing weight of realizing that everything you've ever known, every concept of safety or control, is suddenly meaningless. Your life is forfeit, and there is absolutely nothing, not even the combined might of the Foundation, that can alter that trajectory. This isn't a battle. It's a preordained execution. The horror of futility extends beyond the individual. It impacts anyone who witnesses or understands the mechanism of SCP-096. It's a stark reminder of humanity's fragility in the face of certain anomalous forces. The Foundation's entire purpose is to contain, to protect, to understand. Yet, with 096, once the chain of events is set in motion, all their resources, all their knowledge, are utterly useless. They can only observe the tragedy unfold. This absolute lack of agency, this complete surrender to an unstoppable, unreasoning force, is what truly defines the encounter. It strips away not just life, but hope, purpose, and the very concept of free will, leaving behind only the chilling, undeniable truth. Your fate is sealed, and there's not a single thing you or anyone can do about it. It is the ultimate, inescapable doom. The act of visual perception itself, the accidental glance, is the single, terrifying trigger for SCP-096's rampage, making the very act of looking a potential death sentence. This is not a creature that hunts based on intent, sound, or scent. It is solely about the direct, unfiltered sight of its face, however fleeting, however unintentional. Imagine the sheer, chilling randomness of it all. You could be an innocent bystander, a researcher reviewing footage, or even an artist sketching from a photograph. The trigger isn't malicious intent. It's a simple, biological function of the human eye. This lack of discrimination is a key aspect of its horror. It doesn't care if you're a hero or a villain, if you meant to look or not. Once its face is registered by your optic nerve, the countdown begins. This mechanism fundamentally alters the experience of existing in a world where SCP-096 is uncontained. Every image, every photograph, every piece of surveillance footage becomes a potential landmine. The fear isn't just of the creature itself, but of the ubiquitous nature of visual information in our modern world. A pixelated image on a screen, a blurry print in a forgotten archive, any of these could be the spark that ignites its rage. It forces a terrifying re-evaluation of how we consume visual media. The Foundation goes to extreme lengths to censor and destroy any image of its face, a testament to the devastating power of this simple trigger. Yet, the possibility of an uncensored image slipping through the cracks, or of an accidental direct sighting, always looms like a silent, invisible threat. This singular, indiscriminate trigger means that encountering SCP-096 is less about a direct interaction and more about an unwitting transgression. It's a cosmic lottery where the prize is a gruesome, inescapable death, and the only entry requirement is the ability to see. This chilling simplicity, this absolute reliance on visual input, is a cornerstone of what makes the encounter so uniquely terrifying and utterly unavoidable for its chosen victims. Beyond the initial terror, one of the most agonizing aspects of encountering SCP-096 is the chilling isolation that descends upon its victims. Once the trigger is pulled, you are utterly, irrevocably alone in your fate. No one can help you. No one can intervene. Your doom is a singular, personal journey into oblivion. This isn't just physical isolation. though that often becomes a grim reality as SCP-096 hunts you down, tearing through any human shield or barrier in its path. This is a profound psychological severance. Even if you are surrounded by loved ones, even if the Foundation deploys its most elite task forces, the horrifying truth remains. You are the target, and your annihilation is the only outcome that will appease the entity. Everyone else is merely an obstacle or a horrified witness. The knowledge that your death is a foregone conclusion and that no amount of screaming, begging, or strategic defense will alter it creates an unbearable solitude. You are a condemned person, marching towards an executioner that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be deterred, and feels no malice, only an unstoppable programmed rage. This isolation is a cruel extension of SCP-096's mechanism. Its pursuit is laser-focused. It doesn't deviate. It doesn't get distracted. It moves with a singular purpose, reducing everything in its path to rubble until it reaches you. And in that relentless, unstoppable charge, you are left to confront your mortality in the most brutal, unassisted manner imaginable. The world may be watching, but no hand can reach out to pull you back from the precipice. You are alone with the inevitable. Perhaps the most insidious horror of a confrontation with SCP-096 lies not just in the inevitability of death, but in the complete and utter lack of mercy it displays during its pursuit and subsequent attack. This isn't a creature that toys with its prey or prolongs suffering for sadistic pleasure. Its actions are devoid of emotion, yet its efficiency is terrifyingly brutal. Once activated, SCP-096's behavior shifts from its docile, mournful state to one of single-minded, unstoppable aggression. It will travel any distance, overcome any obstacle, and destroy anything in its path with a terrifying, almost mechanical precision. Walls are rendered to dust, reinforced steel buckles and tiers, and even the most formidable defenses crumble before its relentless charge. There is no pause, no hesitation, no moment of reflection, only an unwavering, destructive drive towards its target. And when it finally reaches you, there is no swift, clean death. The accounts are fragmented, obscured by the sheer violence of the event, but they consistently describe a process of total annihilation. The victim is not merely killed, they are erased. Bones are pulverized, flesh is torn and shredded beyond recognition, reduced to a bloody smear. It is a complete and absolute deconstruction of a human being, leaving behind no identifiable remains. This lack of mercy extends to the environment around the victim. Any attempt at shelter, any desperate plea for protection, is met with the same unfeeling, destructive force. It is as if the universe itself has decided that your existence must be expunged, and SCP-096 is merely the instrument of that decree. There is no appeal, no negotiation, no chance for a final moment of peace. Just the relentless, unyielding force of an entity that will not stop until its grisly task is complete, leaving behind only the horrifying silence where a life once was. This absolute, unfeeling brutality is a core aspect of what makes encountering SCP-096 a truly apocalyptic personal experience. One of the most psychologically devastating aspects of encountering SCP-096 is the profound sense of unfairness and cosmic indifference that permeates the entire ordeal. This isn't a monster driven by malice, revenge, or even a twisted sense of justice. It's a reaction, an automatic, pre-programmed response to a purely accidental act. You haven't wronged it. You merely saw its face. There's no moral justification for its pursuit, no twisted logic that can be understood or appeased. It's a random, indiscriminate act of fate, where a fleeting glance, a pixel on a screen, or a distant photograph can seal your doom. This randomness amplifies the terror because it means anyone, anywhere, at any time could inadvertently trigger their own demise. The universe, in that moment, feels utterly cold and uncaring, singling you out for destruction not because of anything you did, but simply because you looked. This indifference is perhaps more chilling than any deliberate cruelty. A cruel entity can be understood, perhaps even reasoned with. But SCP-096 is an expression of an immutable, uncaring law. Its sorrowful cries in its docile state suggest a creature that itself is trapped by this terrible mechanism, a victim of its own involuntary programming. But that offers no solace to the one being hunted. The victim is left to grapple with the realization that their life is being ended by a force that doesn't even comprehend them as an individual, only as a trigger that must be neutralized. There's no grand battle, no heroic stand against evil. Just a terrifying, one-sided execution, initiated by an act so mundane, so innocent, that it makes the ensuing horror feel like a cosmic joke played at your expense. This arbitrary nature of the trigger, combined with the absolute certainty of the outcome, creates a unique psychological burden, a terror rooted in the sheer unadulterated unfairness of it all. The sheer overwhelming speed with which SCP-096 can close distances is another key aspect of the terror it inflicts. Once activated, its docile, shuffling gait transforms into an impossible, blurring rush. It moves with a frantic, inhuman velocity, defying conventional physics and logic. Imagine, for a moment, the dread of knowing an entity is hurtling towards you at speeds that render escape by conventional means utterly futile. This isn't a slow, creeping horror. It's a rapidly accelerating nightmare. Reports indicate that SCP-096 can traverse hundreds, even thousands of kilometers in mere hours. For the victim, this means that even if they are halfway across the globe, the countdown to their demise has begun, and it's ticking down at an alarming rate. There's no time to devise elaborate plans, no hope of outrunning it, no safe haven truly far enough away. The feeling of being hunted by something that moves with such impossible swiftness must be akin to being caught in the path of an unstoppable, hyper-accelerated force of nature. Every distant tremor, every unexplained disruption, every sudden gust of wind could be it, closing in. The world shrinks, not because you are confined, but because the predator's reach is so vast and its speed so absolute. This rapid approach denies the victim even the small mercy of extended psychological preparation. The terror is compressed, intensely focused into a desperate, frantic scramble against an impossible clock. It's the horror of realizing that the world, which once felt vast and full of escape routes, has suddenly become a tiny, inescapable cage, and the walls are closing in at an unbelievable speed. The rapid acceleration of its pursuit ensures that the dread is not just prolonged, but intensely magnified by the sheer lack of time. The psychological torment inflicted by the anticipation of SCP-096's arrival is a central component of what makes an encounter so horrific. It's not just the fear of the inevitable end, but the agonizing dread that precedes it. Imagine knowing, with absolute certainty, that an unstoppable entity is coming for you, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you can do to stop it. This period of waiting, whether it's hours or days, transforms into a waking nightmare. Every shadow seems to deepen, every distant sound becomes amplified and sinister. The mind, desperate for escape, races through impossible scenarios, concocting futile plans, only to be crushed by the cold, hard reality of SCP-096's invincibility. Sleep becomes a terrifying prospect, a surrender to vulnerability, and wakefulness is a constant vigil, a hyper-alert state of escalating panic. The victim becomes acutely aware of their own fragility, their utter helplessness. Walls that once offered security now feel like flimsy paper. The vastness of the world shrinks to the immediate vicinity, a rapidly diminishing safe zone. Every moment is spent in a state of heightened anxiety, the body flooded with adrenaline, preparing for a confrontation that it knows it cannot win. This psychological siege wears down the victim long before SCP-096 physically arrives. Hope, if it ever existed, is systematically stripped away, replaced by a suffocating despair. The terror isn't just external, it becomes an internal landscape of pure, unadulterated dread. The creature doesn't merely kill its victims, it first breaks their spirit, forcing them to confront their own impending, inescapable demise in the most agonizing way imaginable. This relentless mental torture, the prolonged anticipation of an inevitable, brutal end, is a key aspect of what truly defines an encounter with SCP-096. Perhaps one of the most chilling aspects of encountering SCP-096 is the utter lack of malice in its pursuit. This isn't a creature driven by hunger, revenge, or sadistic pleasure. It doesn't stalk its prey with cunning intent or revel in their terror. Instead, it seems to be a tragically reactive entity, driven by an uncontrollable, instinctual rage, triggered by the sight of its face. This absence of malevolent intent makes the horror all the more profound. It's not a personal vendetta, it's a cosmic indifference. You are not being punished for a sin or targeted by a sentient evil. You simply saw it, and that accidental perception has sealed your fate. There is no negotiation, no plea that can be made, no reasoning that can sway it, because there is no consciousness to reason with. This impersonal, almost mechanical nature of its pursuit strips away any sense of meaning from your impending demise. You are not a victim in a grand struggle, but merely an unfortunate data point in a chain reaction. This reduces your existence to a temporary obstacle, destined to be removed without a second thought. It's the horror of being utterly insignificant in the face of an unstoppable, non-thinking force. The screams it emits during its rage, though horrifying, are not cries of triumph or aggression. They are often described as sounds of profound distress, anguish, and sorrow. This suggests a creature that is itself suffering, trapped in a cycle of violence it cannot control. To be hunted by something that sounds like it's in torment, even as it obliterates you, adds a layer of disturbing complexity to the encounter. It twists the knife of terror, making you question the very nature of the universe and the arbitrary cruelty it can unleash. The horror isn't just in the death it brings, but in the disturbing paradox of its sorrowful yet utterly destructive existence. This makes the encounter not just terrifying, but deeply unsettling on a philosophical level. The sheer futility of resistance is another cornerstone of what it's like to encounter SCP-096. From the moment the activation occurs, any attempt at defense, escape, or even mere survival is rendered utterly meaningless. This isn't a challenge to be overcome, but an execution to be endured. Consider the strongest fortifications, the most advanced weaponry, the most skilled combatants. Against SCP-096, they are nothing. Walls crumble like dust, armor tears like tissue paper, and flesh offers no more resistance than a whisper of air. Eyewitness accounts, however scarce, speak of its ability to tear through concrete, steel, and rock with an almost casual force, its long, emaciated limbs becoming instruments of unparalleled destruction. There are no safe rooms, no impenetrable bunkers, no hiding places that can withstand its determined advance. This absolute and undeniable superiority crushes the human spirit. The primal instinct to fight for survival, deeply ingrained in our very being, is rendered utterly impotent. It's not just that you will die, it's that you can do absolutely nothing to prevent it. This impotence is a psychological blow as devastating as any physical injury. It strips away dignity, agency, and any illusion of control. Furthermore, there is no intervention, no cavalry charge, no last-minute rescue. The Foundation's protocols, designed to contain the most dangerous anomalies, are focused on preventing activation, not on protecting activated victims. Once SCP-096 is on the hunt, the victim is an expendable casualty, a regrettable but necessary sacrifice to prevent wider catastrophe. This isolation, the knowledge that you are utterly alone against an unstoppable force, compounds the terror. Your cries for help go unanswered, not out of malice, but out of grim necessity. The final moments are not a struggle, but an obliteration. There is no heroic last stand, no desperate fight, just a swift, brutal, and utterly final end, leaving behind no trace of the victim, only the lingering, chilling silence of what was. This complete and irreversible futility, the absolute absence of hope, defines the terrifying finality of what it's like to encounter SCP-096. The psychological impact of knowing your death is inevitable, and that it is approaching with terrifying speed, is arguably the most insidious aspect of encountering SCP-096. It's not just the fear of death, but the protracted dread of its certain arrival. Imagine that moment of realization, a fleeting glimpse, a sudden cold dread in your stomach as the fragmented image of its gaunt, pale face sears itself into your mind. Then comes the understanding, perhaps from whispered rumors or forgotten files, of what you have just done. The clock starts ticking, not just on your life, but on your sanity. The initial shock gives way to a sickening wave of panic. You might run, hide, call for help, but with each passing minute, the horrifying truth solidifies. It's coming. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you can do. Every shadow seems to deepen. Every distant sound becomes a potential harbinger of its approach. The world around you, once familiar and safe, transforms into a vast, indifferent stage for your final act. This period of anticipation is a living nightmare. Your mind races, cycling through desperate, futile plans, each one collapsing under the weight of SCP-096's known capabilities. Sleep becomes impossible, haunted by visions of its arrival. Food loses its taste. Conversation becomes meaningless. All that exists is the looming shadow of its inevitable presence. You become a prisoner of your own mind, trapped in a cell of dread, while the true monster, miles away, closes in with relentless, horrifying efficiency. The terror isn't just about the end, but about the slow, agonizing unraveling of everything that makes you human in the minutes or even hours leading up to it. It's the torment of waiting for the executioner, knowing he is unhurried, unstoppable, and utterly without mercy. This psychological ordeal ensures that by the time SCP-0096 arrives, its victim is already broken, a mere shell awaiting its final brutal dissolution. Perhaps the most profoundly disturbing aspect of encountering SCP-096 is the sheer unfairness of it all. This isn't a battle of wills, a test of courage, or a consequence of malicious intent. It's an accidental glance, a fleeting, unintentional perception that seals your fate. You haven't wronged it, you haven't provoked it with aggression or sought to harm it. You simply saw its face. It could have been a grainy photograph on a screen, a blurred image from miles away, or even a drawn sketch. The intent, the distance, the clarity, none of it matters. The mechanism is absolute. Perception equals activation. This isn't a sentient predator choosing its prey. It's a biological imperative, a broken switch flipped by a particular input. SCP-096 isn't evil in the traditional sense. It's a force of nature, an entity that reacts with overwhelming destructive fury to a specific stimulus, seemingly without malice or pleasure. Its cries, often described as mournful or pained before it enters its enraged state, only deepen this unsettling sense of an entity that is itself a victim of its own terrifying biology. The horror, then, is that your death is utterly random, arbitrary, and undeserved. You are not being punished for a crime, but simply erased for an unfortunate coincidence. This strips away any sense of justice or meaning from your demise. There's no lesson to be learned, no heroic sacrifice to be made. You are simply unlucky. This element of cosmic indifference is deeply unsettling. It speaks to a universe where inexplicable horrors exist, where a casual, innocent act can lead to an inescapable, brutal end. It reminds us of our fragility, not against a malevolent force, but against a universe that can, without warning or reason, unleash something utterly beyond our comprehension or control. The unfairness of being hunted to death for an accidental glance is a chilling reminder of the chaotic and indifferent nature of some of the most terrifying entities in existence. The final, chilling aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the utter finality of its arrival. There is no struggle, no last stand, no chance for a desperate escape. Once it reaches you, your existence simply ends. Accounts, pieced together from the aftermath of its rampages, paint a grim picture. Its speed and strength are beyond human comprehension. Walls, reinforced bunkers, even entire landscapes are mere inconveniences to its single-minded pursuit. When it finally reaches its target, it does so with an explosive, unbridled fury. Imagine the last moments, the deafening screams, the tearing of metal, the splintering of stone, as SCP-096 tears through every obstacle between it and you. Then, the silence. Not a peaceful silence, but the sudden, absolute void left in the wake of unimaginable destruction. There are no survivors to recount the immediate impact, only the gruesome evidence left behind. Mangled remains, utterly unrecognizable, scattered across a wide area. Sometimes there is nothing left at all. This isn't a fight, it's an obliteration. You aren't just killed, you are erased. The entity doesn't toy with its prey or prolong its suffering once it has arrived. The chase is the psychological torment. The climax is swift, brutal, and absolute. Your body is not simply rendered lifeless. It is utterly destroyed, often to the point where identification is impossible. This finality underscores the complete and utter helplessness of the victim. All the running, all the hiding, all the desperate pleas, they amount to nothing. When SCP-096 arrives. It doesn't just take your life, it takes your very form, your identity, reducing you to nothing more than a stain on the landscape. It's a terrifying testament to an entity that offers no quarter, no mercy, and leaves behind only the chilling void where a life once was. One of the most insidious aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of isolation it instills. Once activated, you are utterly, terrifyingly alone in your fate. No one can help you. No one can intervene. Imagine the sheer terror of knowing you are being hunted relentlessly by an entity that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be stopped, and whose sole purpose has become your destruction. And yet, you are surrounded by people who are oblivious, or worse, powerless. Your loved ones, your friends, even the most heavily armed military forces, they are all utterly useless against this particular threat. The Foundation, with all its vast resources and esoteric knowledge, has only one solution: containment, not protection. Their focus is on ensuring no one sees its face, because once that threshold is crossed, the die is cast. For the victim, this means that even the most powerful organization on Earth can offer no solace, no sanctuary, no escape. You might try to warn others, to explain the horror bearing down upon you, but their understanding would be incomplete, their actions futile. They might try to shield you, to build walls, to deploy weapons, but all of it would be in vain. The entity will tear through everything, a screaming, unstoppable force, until it reaches you. This isolation is not just physical, it's existential. You are isolated in your terror, isolated in your unique and unavoidable doom. No one else shares your immediate personal horror. You become an island of dread, adrift in a sea of unknowing, while the storm of SCP-096's wrath gathers specifically for you. The world continues around you, indifferent, while your personal apocalypse barrels forward. This chilling solitude amplifies the dread to an almost unbearable degree. To face such an absolute, overwhelming threat entirely on your own, knowing that every barrier will fall and every plea will go unheard, is a psychological torture far exceeding the physical destruction that inevitably follows. It's the ultimate abandonment, a lonely march towards an inevitable, brutal end, with no one able to stand between you and the inevitable. Perhaps the most unsettling key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the chilling realization of its impersonal nature. This is not a hunt born of malice, revenge, or even hunger. SCP-096 isn't evil in the way a serial killer is evil. It's more akin to a force of nature, a biological imperative that has been tragically, terrifyingly misdirected. When it screams and tears through obstacles, when it finally reaches its target and obliterates them, there is no joy, no sadistic pleasure in its actions. Its behavior is a visceral, uncontrollable reaction to a specific stimulus, someone seeing its face. It's a creature driven by an instinct it cannot override, a profound distress that manifests as catastrophic violence. This makes the encounter all the more horrifying. You haven't offended it, challenged it, or even been noticed by it in any conscious way. You are simply a trigger, an unfortunate accident in its existence. Your death is not a punishment, but a byproduct of its own suffering, a desperate attempt to reset its internal state. Imagine being pursued to your absolute destruction by something that isn't angry at you, but merely reacting to your presence. It's not a personal vendetta. You are simply the designated solution to its agony. This complete lack of personal animosity This cold mechanical response robs the victim of even the tragic dignity of being a worthy adversary. You are not a foe. You are an unfortunate mistake, an itch that must be scratched with unparalleled ferocity. This impersonal brutality transforms the dread from fear of a monster into terror of a cosmic indifference, a universe where an accidental glance can seal your doom. Not because something wants you dead, but because that's simply how it works. It's the horror of being insignificant in the face of an uncontrollable, non-malicious, yet utterly destructive force. Another terrifying key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the chilling disparity between the cause and the effect. Your accidental glance, a momentary flicker of perception, is such an innocent, negligible action. Perhaps you saw a blurry image on a screen, a fleeting glimpse in a grainy photograph, or even just a crude drawing. It was unintentional, meaningless in its conception. And yet, this insignificant act triggers a response of unimaginable, disproportionate violence. For that momentary, unthinking observation, you are condemned to a pursuit that will shatter continents if necessary, and end in your absolute, brutal obliteration. There is no fairness in this equation, no balance. The universe does not care that your perception was accidental or that you meant no harm. This immense imbalance is a source of profound existential dread. It highlights the utter fragility of human existence in the face of forces we cannot comprehend, let alone control. Your life, your future, your very being can be erased for the most trivial, inconsequential reason. It's a stark reminder that some horrors don't operate on a moral compass or a system of justice, but on a cold, indifferent set of rules that can be triggered by the slightest misstep. The terror isn't just about the physical threat. It's about the cosmic injustice of it all. To be hunted to death for an accidental glimpse, to have your entire world torn apart because of a fraction of a second's visual input, is a concept that truly twists the mind. It makes the world feel fundamentally unsafe, a place where arbitrary damnation can strike at any moment, for any reason, no matter how small. This disproportionate consequence amplifies the helplessness. There's no way to apologize, no way to retract the action, no way to undo the trigger. The die is cast, and the penalty for your minute transgression is the complete and utter erasure of your existence. It's a truly horrifying testament to the sheer, unyielding power of SCP-096 and the arbitrary nature of the dread it embodies. Perhaps the most psychologically scarring aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of futile inevitability. From the moment the activation occurs, your fate is sealed. There is no escape, no bargaining, no hiding place on Earth, or even beyond, that can save you. This is not a challenge you can overcome, nor a puzzle you can solve. It is simply a countdown to your annihilation. Imagine the crushing weight of knowing with absolute certainty that a force beyond comprehension is relentlessly, unstoppably closing in on you. Every moment you draw breath, every beat of your heart is just a step closer to the end. The world, once a place of possibilities, shrinks to a cage where the walls are collapsing inward. This isn't the fear of a sudden, unexpected death. It's the prolonged, agonizing torment of anticipating an inevitable, brutal end. You can run, you can hide, you can scream, but every action is a desperate, meaningless flailing against an unyielding tide. The Foundation, with all its power and resources, cannot protect you. They can only contain the aftermath. The futility extends beyond physical escape. There is no hope for intervention, no divine miracle, no last-minute reprieve. You are utterly alone in the face of this absolute doom. This realization strips away all semblance of control, leaving you exposed to the raw, unadulterated terror of your own powerlessness. The inevitability also means there's no struggle. You might fight back, but it would be akin to swatting at a hurricane with a feather. SCP-096 will tear through whatever stands in its path, including you, with effortless, overwhelming force. The fight itself is futile, prolonging only the psychological torment, not altering the outcome. This profound sense of futile inevitability transforms the encounter into a psychological gauntlet, a relentless assault on the mind even before the physical obliteration begins. It's the ultimate horror of having your life reduced to a ticking clock, knowing the exact nature of your demise, yet being utterly powerless to prevent it. Another horrifying key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the sheer, unstoppable speed and destructive power it exhibits during its pursuit. This isn't a slow, creeping dread, but a hyper-accelerated, catastrophic sprint towards your demise. Once activated, SCP-096 transforms into a living projectile, capable of reaching speeds that defy conventional physics, tearing through any obstacle in its path with terrifying ease. Imagine the reports. Mountains reduced to rubble, reinforced concrete bunkers ripped open like paper, entire landscapes scarred by its passage. Every barrier, every fortification, every natural defense you could conceive of is utterly meaningless against its single-minded rampage. It doesn't detour, it destroys. It doesn't slow, it accelerates. This incredible velocity and destructive force contribute immensely to the sense of futility. There's no outrunning it, no hiding behind walls strong enough to withstand its fury. The world itself seems to bend and break under its pursuit, emphasizing just how insignificant you are in comparison. The sound of its approach, if you're close enough to hear it, would be a crescendo of unimaginable destruction, shattering stone, rending metal, the very ground trembling beneath its passage. The sheer scale of the devastation it leaves in its wake serves as a terrifying preview of your own fate. If an entire mountain range cannot impede it, what hope do you, a mere human, possess? This aspect elevates the horror from a personal threat to an almost apocalyptic event, localized solely to the path between SCP-096 and its unfortunate target. It's a relentless, hyper-efficient killing machine honed to a singular purpose by an accidental glance. The terrifying knowledge that nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop its charge towards you makes the waiting an unbearable ordeal, and the eventual impact an absolute, undeniable certainty. It is the embodiment of an unstoppable force meeting an utterly immovable object, you. Beyond the futility and the horrifying speed, another key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the absolute isolation and lack of external aid. Once you've seen its face, you are marked. No one can help you. The Foundation, the most powerful and secretive organization on Earth, dedicated to containing anomalous threats, is utterly powerless to intervene on your behalf. Their protocols shift from containment of SCP-096 to containment of the collateral damage it inflicts during its pursuit. Your life is a sacrifice, a necessary casualty in their larger mission. Imagine the crushing realization that even the people dedicated to protecting humanity from such horrors have, in your specific case, given up. They will watch you die, not out of malice, but out of necessity and a grim understanding of the futility of intervention. Any attempt to save you would only risk activating SCP-096 on a wider scale, jeopardizing countless more lives. You are, in essence, expendable. This means that any friends, family, or loved ones you might try to reach out to become unwitting obstacles, potential collateral damage. Their attempts to protect you would only put them in the path of an unstoppable force. You become a pariah, not by choice, but by circumstance, forced to face your doom utterly alone. There are no rescue missions, no last-ditch efforts to extract you. The world, in a chilling twist, effectively abandons you. This psychological abandonment amplifies the terror exponentially. It's not just the fear of death, but the profound existential dread of being utterly forsaken, deemed beyond salvation by even those who strive to save others. You are an isolated island in a sea of helplessness, waiting for the inevitable wave to crash over you, knowing that no one will reach out a hand. Perhaps the most insidious key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the profound sense of personal violation and unjust retribution. This isn't a malicious entity seeking revenge or driven by evil. It's a force of nature, reacting to a trigger that, for the victim, is often entirely accidental, momentary, and utterly insignificant. You didn't provoke it with intent. You didn't commit a heinous act. You merely glimpsed its face, a fraction of a second, perhaps even from a blurry, distant photograph. And for that, you are condemned to a brutal, agonizing death. This disproportionality is deeply unsettling. It strips away any semblance of fairness or justice from the universe. You are not being punished for a crime. You are being eradicated for an unfortunate coincidence. The universe, in that moment, feels utterly indifferent, even cruel. Your existence, your life, your future are deemed less important than the psychological state of a creature that cries and wails before it tears you limb from limb. The victim's perspective must be one of bewildered horror. Why me? For what transgression? The inability to comprehend the why behind the relentless hunt adds a layer of existential terror. It's not just a monster, it's a living, breathing paradox of arbitrary judgment. There's no negotiation, no plea, no apology that can change its course. Its reaction is primal, instinctual, and utterly devoid of reason or empathy. This sense of personal violation extends beyond the physical. Your autonomy is stripped away. Your right to exist is revoked by a creature you may not have even known existed moments before. It invades your life, not just to end it, but to utterly obliterate any meaning or control you ever had over your own destiny. The finality isn't just death, it's the absolute erasure of your being, provoked by an innocent act, leaving behind a chilling testament to the arbitrary fragility of life in a world with such horrors lurking. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096, and one that truly separates it from other monstrous threats, is the impersonal nature of its pursuit, coupled with its own apparent distress. This isn't a predator driven by hunger, territory, or malice. It doesn't hunt with glee or sadism. Instead, it cries. It wails. Its activation is accompanied by sounds of profound anguish and sorrow, as if the very act of pursuing its victim is a torment to itself. Imagine that. The creature that is relentlessly, mercilessly coming to tear you apart is itself screaming in distress. This isn't comforting. It's horrifying. It implies that SCP-096 is not a malevolent entity, but rather a tragic one, a living, breathing weapon forced into an act of unimaginable violence against its own apparent will. Its sorrow doesn't spare you. It merely adds another layer of grim, existential dread to your final moments. This impersonal, almost ritualistic aspect of its hunt means there is no reasoning with it, no begging for mercy. It's not angry with you. It doesn't even seem to see you as an individual with a life. You are merely the target, the catalyst for its agonizing transformation. Its wails are not for your suffering, but for its own, as if its existence is a perpetual cycle of anguish triggered by an unwitting glance. This makes the encounter uniquely terrifying. You aren't facing a demon, but a force of nature that suffers with you, or perhaps because of you, as it brings about your destruction. It's a tragedy playing out for both hunter and hunted, but only one of you gets to walk away from the carnage, and even then, only to await the next accidental glance. This fusion of relentless, destructive power with apparent, profound sorrow creates a horror that lingers long after the encounter, a testament to a universe capable of such cruel, beautiful, and utterly inescapable mechanisms. One of the most terrifying key aspects of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the absolute futility of resistance and the certainty of annihilation. From the moment its face is perceived, your fate is sealed. There are no defenses, no hiding places, no weapons that can deter it. The Foundation, with all its power and resources, has long since determined that any attempt to protect a victim is not only pointless, but dangerously counterproductive, risking wider containment breaches and further activations. This knowledge, seeping into the public consciousness or whispered in hushed tones within secure facilities, is a cold, hard truth. You are not just being hunted, you are being hunted by an entity against which every single human defense is utterly meaningless. Think of the psychological impact of that realization. Every door, every wall, every bunker, every military-grade weapon you could possibly imagine will be utterly useless. It will pass through or over them with terrifying ease, tearing them to shreds as if they were made of paper. There is no strategic retreat, no tactical advantage to be gained. The only strategy is a desperate, frantic scramble that delays the inevitable by mere moments, prolonging the agony of anticipation. Every second spent running, every barrier erected, only serves to underscore the hopelessness of the situation. It's a macabre dance of death where the outcome is predetermined, and your participation is merely to witness your own impending demise. The certainty of annihilation isn't a threat. It's a promise, delivered with the unstoppable force of a natural disaster. You are not fighting for your life. You are merely existing in the terrifying interlude between activation and eradication. This absolute futility is a psychological weapon in itself, shattering all hope and leaving only a raw, primal terror in its wake. It is a testament to an entity that embodies pure, unadulterated, and inescapable finality. Another crucial aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096, and perhaps the most insidious, is the psychological torment inflicted by the escalating dread of its approach. It's not just the physical threat, it's the mind-shattering knowledge that it is coming, and there is nothing you can do. The moment the activation is confirmed, a clock starts ticking, but it's a clock without a visible face, its hands moving with unknown, terrifying speed. For those who are aware of SCP-096's nature, the horror begins not when it arrives, but when they realize they've seen its face. The initial shock gives way to a cold, sinking dread as the implications flood their mind. They know what's coming. The unstoppable pursuit, the demolition of anything in its path, the ultimate, brutal end. This isn't a quick jump scare. It's a slow, agonizing descent into madness, fueled by the certainty of impending doom. Imagine the hours, or even days, that could pass between a glimpse and its arrival. Every shadow becomes a potential manifestation, every distant sound a precursor to its wails. Sleep becomes impossible, replaced by vivid nightmares of a pale, elongated figure tearing through landscapes. Food loses its taste. Conversation becomes meaningless. All that matters is the relentless, hyper-focused thought of it coming for you. This escalating dread transforms the world into a hostile, suffocating cage. You are trapped not just by physical barriers, but by your own mind, which relentlessly calculates the dwindling time, the impossible distances, and the absolute finality of the chase. It's a terror that gnaws at your sanity, stripping away hope and leaving behind only a raw, screaming fear. By the time SCP-096 finally arrives, the psychological damage may already be complete, leaving you a hollow shell, ready for the inevitable erasure. A particularly unsettling key aspect of what it's like to encounter SCP-096 is the impersonal nature of its pursuit and the lack of malice. This isn't a vengeful spirit, a cunning predator, or a malevolent entity that delights in suffering. SCP-096 acts purely on instinct, driven by an almost biological imperative to eliminate anyone who has seen its face. It doesn't hate you. It doesn't even recognize you as an individual. You are merely a trigger, an anomaly in its existence that must be rectified. This absence of malice might seem like a small comfort, but in reality, it amplifies the horror. There's no reasoning with it, no bargaining, no appeal to its emotions, because it has none in the human sense. It's a force of nature, like a tsunami or an earthquake, but one that is singularly focused on you. The universe, in that moment, has decided you are an anomaly that must be expunged, and SCP-096 is merely the instrument of that cosmic indifference. Think about the profound terror of being hunted by something that isn't angry, isn't cruel, but simply is. Its pursuit isn't personal. It's a cold, mechanical response to a perceived violation. There's no satisfaction for it in your screams, no enjoyment in your terror. It simply moves relentlessly towards its objective. Its wails a manifestation of its own internal distress, rather than any desire to inflict pain. This impersonal nature robs the victim of any sense of agency or significance. You are not a worthy opponent. You are a problem to be solved, an error to be corrected. It's the ultimate dehumanization, reducing you to nothing more than a target in a horrifying, instinct-driven hunt. This indifference makes the experience even more chilling, stripping away any shred of meaning from your final moments and leaving only the stark, terrifying reality of an arbitrary, unavoidable end. So, what truly is it like to encounter SCP-096? We've journeyed through the harrowing details, and the picture that emerges is one of unadulterated, inescapable horror. It is, above all, an encounter with absolute finality, triggered by the most mundane and accidental of acts, a mere glance. This isn't a struggle for survival. It's a countdown to inevitable erasure. From the moment its face is perceived, a relentless and hyper-destructive pursuit is initiated. Barriers, distances, and defenses all become meaningless against its terrifying speed and unstoppable force. You are not fighting for your life. You are merely existing until it arrives to claim it. The psychological torment is perhaps the most insidious aspect. The escalating dread, the knowledge of its certain approach, gnaws at your sanity long before any physical harm occurs. It's a slow, agonizing descent into madness, where hope is systematically stripped away, leaving only profound fear and the crushing weight of isolation. Every moment becomes a living nightmare, every shadow a harbinger of its arrival. And then there's the chilling indifference of it all. SCP-096's pursuit is impersonal, devoid of malice, driven by a primal instinctual distress rather than any conscious cruelty. You are not a hated enemy, but an anomaly, an error to be corrected by a force of nature that feels no anger, only a profound internal sorrow that manifests as brutal, devastating violence. This lack of personal vendetta makes the experience even more terrifying, reducing you to an insignificant target in a universe that simply doesn't care. Ultimately, encountering SCP-096 is a terrifying testament to the universe's arbitrary cruelty. It's the unfairness of being hunted to death for an accidental glance by a non-malicious entity that offers no chance of survival or struggle. It's a journey into absolute futility, culminating in swift, brutal annihilation, leaving no trace behind but the chilling echo of its wails. So, the next time you glance at a grainy photo or see a fleeting image on a screen, remember the pale, elongated figure that lies in wait. Because sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not those that seek to harm you out of malice, but those that simply cannot tolerate being seen. Be careful what you look at, for some things, once seen, can never be unseen. And they will never, ever forget you.